Hey, good morning, friends. Welcome to the Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, and thanks for joining us. Our number today and every day on the Bright Side, 844-236-6010. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, we'd love hearing from you. 844-236-6010. If you have a health challenge you or a loved one is having a hard time dealing with, we are here for you. 844-236-6010 is our number. If you have questions about supplementation, nutritional supplements, medications, health challenges, 844-236-6010 is our number on the Bright Side. We'll be talking to Brandon Beacham, host of the Positive Head podcast, at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about his book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. Brandon Beacham will be with us at the bottom of the hour, and we'll get your calls in our next segment, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also call 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470 for more information. Also ask about joining the Brightside Ben team if you're an entrepreneur, you like the entrepreneur lifestyle, or you want to be part of the billion-dollar nutritional supplement business. You owe it to yourself to check out the longevity business opportunity. Click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also call 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470. If you would like to speak to a real live human being, you can also order products by calling 866-735-2470. All right, so we've been talking about skin pigmentation, melanin, skin pigment, versus lipofuscin, which is the aging pigment. Lipofuscin appears inside the body, also appears sometimes on the skin. Lipofuscin is deeper in the skin than melanin, ordinary pigmentation. Ordinary pigmentation, melanin, is towards the surface of the skin. It can be sloughed off. It can be lightened. Lipofuscin cannot be sloughed off. Lipofuscin cannot be lightened. Lipofuscin has to be drained away via lymphatic drainage. That's ordinarily how lipofuscin is eliminated from the body. When it accumulates, you can rest assured you're not eliminating. You're not eliminating as effectively, and this is one of the things that happens as we get older. We don't eliminate and we don't detoxify as effectively, and this is what accounts for aging. Or at least one of the main reasons why we age is we don't eliminate toxicity and we don't handle toxicity as effectively as the years go by. Melanin, on the other hand, is not necessarily a sign of toxicity as much as it's a sign of hormonal imbalances. Yesterday we talked about the stress system and melanin, and the melanin is responsive to stress hormones, I should say, neurochemistry, specifically estrogen and cortisol, two chemicals, not neurochemicals, but two chemicals, molecules, biochemicals, that are associated with the stress response. The melanocytes are the cells that make pigment. Melano meaning pigment, cyte meaning cell. The melanocytes are responsive to something called melanocyte stimulating hormone, MSH. MSH itself is derived from stress chemistry, specifically something called melanocortins. Melanocortins are involved with stress. MSH goes up. When MSH goes up, we make more pigment. And all of this has to do less with sun exposure than how we're handling life. And you're going to need a lot more than a sunscreen and hydroquinone, which is the gold standard over-the-counter and prescription drug for dealing with pigmentation. We have a lot of misunderstandings about our skin. We see something on the surface of the skin and we immediately think, well, I'm just going to go to a dermatologist, or I'm just going to use a cream and get rid of that thing on the skin. We don't see the skin, even though we give lip service to the fact that the skin is the body's largest organ, we don't really see the skin as an organ. Understandably, it sure doesn't look like an organ, but it's an organ. And it's tied in with all of the organs inside the body. It's tied in with the heart. It's tied in with the liver. It's tied in with the adrenal glands and the kidneys. It's tied in with the connective tissue system. If you have a skin problem, you have an internal problem. And while you can certainly do things topically with your skin to sometimes correct, to make it healthier, to make it more beautiful, you have to be able to address the inside of the body if you're going to deal with the outside of the body. If you want to go topical, if you want to go with skin creams or skin lotions and you're dealing with hyperpigmentation, you can use hydroquinone. Personally, I'd avoid it. I don't like working with it as a pharmacist. I wouldn't recommend anybody put it on their skin. My favorite non-hydroquinone skin lightener is retinoic acid. Retinoic acid is vitamin A. It's the active form of vitamin A. Most people have heard of a product called Retin-A. That used to be the only way you could get retinoic acid in a cream, in a topical preparation. These days there's lots of knockoffs of retinoic acid, and there's lots of generic forms of Retin-A. Retinoic acid is super active. Retinoic acid controls the growth of cells. Retinoic acid turns on the production of connective tissue, specifically collagen, from the connective tissue making cells, the so-called fibroblasts. And retinoic acid stabilizes the growth of skin cells. One of the misleading aspects of the skin, when we look at it from the surface or from the outside in, is that nothing's happening. But really, it's a beehive of activity. And one of the main processes that's going on in the skin is the movement of cells from the bottom to the top. The bottom of the skin, or at the bottom of the surface of the skin, it's called the epidermis. The bottom of the epidermis, which is the skin surface, contains cells which are born in this bottom layer and then rise up to the top. And as they're rising up to the top, they're taking on a different shape. And this rising up to the top and all of these different shapes that these cells are taking are collectively called, the process is called differentiation, because the cells are taking on different shapes. Well, differentiation and the movement of cells from the bottom to the top is really complicated. Involves a lot of regulatory factors, and when the movement of cells does not proceed from the bottom to the top effectively, when the cells don't take on all of these many different shapes as effectively as they should, skin diseases result. This is what eczema is about. People can't figure out what the heck these eczema patches are. You look in your skin, if you have eczema, you got these patches, and you can see the underneath layers of the skin. You say, what the heck is going on? You go to the dermatologist, he gives you a steroid cream. We don't really know what's happening. We just put the cream on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But because we don't really understand what's happening, we can't really do anything about it. Well, I'm going to tell you what's happening. What's happening is the cells are not moving from the bottom to the top effectively. The process of movement of differentiation is not occurring as it should. And it's not occurring as it should because of a lack of nutrition and because of inflammatory factors usually coming in from the digestive system. This is why nutrition and correcting digestive health issues is job number one if you're dealing with eczema. Well, one of the major regulatory factors, maybe the most important regulatory factor that controls the movement of cells from the bottom to the top, this differentiation process, is none other than vitamin A, especially in the form, which is the active form of vitamin A, called retinoic acid. All right, we're going to continue this discussion when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. Brendan Beecham will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back right after this. We are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010. 844-236-6010 is our number. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, 844-236-6010 is the number to call. We love hearing from you. We've got Brandon Beecham coming up at the bottom of the hour. His book is The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. His podcast is called The Positive Head Podcast. Brandon Beecham is an entrepreneur as well as a mystic and thought leader and author and podcast host. And we're going to talk to him about his book. And we'll also talk about modern alchemy. Love the subject of alchemy. Alchemy is nothing more than the idea of turning lead to gold, of turning mud into fertilizer, of turning lemons into lemonade, of turning raw material into finished product. And in a way, we're all alchemists because we're all taking the events of our lives and turning them into our life. The key is to become a conscious alchemist, to take the events of your life consciously and then turn them into what you want them to be consciously and with intent. And if your life is not going as well as it might, you might want to practice alchemy. You might want to study how your life shows up as a result of the building blocks. That's what spiritual alchemy is all about. We'll talk to Brendan Beecham at the bottom of the hour. His book is The Golden Key, and we'll get your calls this segment, 844-236-6010. Real quick, we'll continue talking about pigmentation and vitiligo and retinoic acid on our next Bright Side episode, and the importance of retinoic acid for healthy skin, and also the importance of vitamin A, really, for a healthy body. Retinoic acid The active ingredient in Retin-A is vitamin A. It's the active form of vitamin A. Arguably, well, I don't want to say the most important, but certainly one of the most important nutrients you could ever put in your system. It's much more than a vitamin, in fact. Vitamin A, retinoic acid, is actually a hormone, and it has the same fundamental effects on a cell that a hormone does. We'll continue this discussion on our next Bright Side episode. Real quick, we'll get your calls here in just a moment. This is from Oxford, United Kingdom. According to this is from... I'm not sure exactly where this is from, but it's an interesting title. Having a sweet tooth could lead to heart disease and death in middle age. Chocolate fans may want to look away. A new study finds indulging in sweet treats can mean big trouble for your heart later in life. Researchers from the University of Oxford say sugary drinks and eating too much chocolate increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. This is me talking now. This is a result of blood sugar and insulin. It's not cholesterol, folks. It ain't the cholesterol that causes the heart disease. It's the sugar and it's the insulin. And in fact, the cholesterol itself is the end result of elevated blood sugar and elevated insulin. Not so much chocolate. It's just sugar. And it doesn't have to be sweets. It could be bread. It could be rice, and it could be pasta. And this is why the ketogenic diet is so darn valuable. Ketogenic diet is a low-carb, low-calorie diet. Don't forget the low-calorie part. That's the part people miss when they try to go ketogenic, is they miss the low-calorie part. It's low-carb, low-calorie. This is the key. Sugar is the bad guy, and it doesn't have to be sweets. Refined carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates are problematic, especially when it comes to aging, especially when it comes to glycation, which is the sugaring of protein in the body, and especially when it comes to cardiovascular disease, the leading cause of death on planet Earth. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in this country. It's the leading cause of death on the entire planet. And you can rest the problem on the doorstep of processed carbohydrates and sugar. All right, 844-236-6010 is our number. Let's go to the phones and talk to our friend Don in GA. What's going on, Don in Georgia?
Hey, Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Quick question.
Yes, sir, my friend.
What say you about the science or study of iridology?
Iridology is interesting. You know, did you ever hear the idea that your earlobe contains all the points of the body, all the various organs of the body can be shrunk down to your earlobe? And acupuncturists, and you ever hear that about your foot? The bottom of your foot, like all the parts of your body can be found in the bottom of your foot. Well, it's the same thing with iridology. These are called fractals, where there's self-similarity. It's like various parts of the body can be used to detect all the specific organs of the body. And it's no different with the eyes, or the iris, specifically in the eyes. And people who practice iridology will tell you, and I'm not sure that it's not, I don't know if it's true or not, but they'll tell you that patterns and colors in the eye, in the iris, can be used to examine the body system. So patterns and colors in the eyes, and also they'll divide the iris into different sections that will respond to specific parts of the body, so that the eyes are actually a window into the entire body as a whole. So by looking at patterns and by looking at various sections of the iris, they can detect things that are going wrong with your kidneys, or with your liver, or with your bones, or with your heart. And it makes sense, you know. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It sounds kind of woo-woo, but when you understand the nature of fractals and self-similarity, and how the holographic theory says the parts are located in the whole, and each part is itself a whole, it kind of makes sense. I don't have a problem with it. What do you think about it? Does that make sense, by the way I explained it?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually, the way you explained it. And it goes to the old adage of as above, so below.
Kind of like that.
Within, so without. You know what I mean? So that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, kind of like that. You know, I had a friend who went to an acupuncturist, and he couldn't quit smoking, and they kind of probed around his earlobe, and they noticed a little specific area of his earlobe that indicated he had a problem with his respiratory tract, and they actually did some weird acupuncture thing, and he never smoked cigarettes again. when I heard that story, and I knew this guy really well, and I remember him trying to quit smoking, and he couldn't do it. It kind of woke me up. It does sound a little bit woo-woo, but it makes sense too. Like you say, as above, so below, and the nature of fractals is such, and holographs are such that the whole is contained in the part. So we know that about reflexology. Do you ever see the map of the foot, the bottom of the foot?
Yeah.
How you can, right? It's the same, and you could also do it with the palm of your hand. So the medical model will tell you that all this stuff is pseudoscience, and these are all quacks who are practicing it as if the medical model and the medical strategy is the only true way to manipulate the body or to take care of people's health. I don't buy that. So I would say that it probably makes sense. That's my take on it. Have you been to an iridologist?
No, but I've been watching some of these guys on YouTube, like Robert Morris, and like he's a big iridologist out in Florida. And
Okay.
I've been watching his videos where he does like diagnosis with the eyes, and it's fascinating.
Interesting. And does he have a success rate? Does he talk about a success rate?
That's why I asked you, because not enough people that I see that do iridology come back with a success rate. So
just because it makes sense, just because the science makes sense or it's logical that the iris has 100 different zones, if you will, that correspond to parts of the body, doesn't mean that every practitioner is going to be effective. So you got to separate. You got to kind of separate the practitioners from the theory. The theory makes sense, but you can actually, there's practitioners who can actually leverage the theory, take advantage of the theory. That's a whole other issue. But I think the theory makes sense. That's my hunch. All right, I got to go, Don. Thanks so much for bringing that up, and thanks for your call. Appreciate it. Have a great day. And that's all the time we have for our calls on the bright side. We've got Brandon Beacham and his book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance, host of the Positive Head podcast. Brandon Beacham will be with us in our next segment. Don't go away. All right, we're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben, and we're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at brightsideben.com. We've got a search engine up as well as the longevity products. If you want to purchase longevity products, you can go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also call 866-735-2470. That's 866-735-2470. You can also sign up to join the Brightside Ben team if you want to start a longevity business. If you're an entrepreneur, you like the entrepreneur lifestyle, or you want to be part of the billion-dollar nutritional supplement business, call 866-735-2470 for more info, or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated by myself in my compounding pharmacy for helping folks deal with eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, dry skin, aging skin, preventing post-surgical scarring. You can find all our Truth Skin Health products without any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products. They're all available at truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com, and please take a look at our 1,800 4- and 5-star reviews at truthreviewed.com, truthreviewed.com for our reviews, and truthtreatments.com for all our Truth Skin Health products. All right, I'm looking forward to speaking to our guest today. Brandon Beacham is a podcaster. He's an entrepreneur. He is an author. His book is The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. Please welcome to the bright side, Brandon Beacham. Hey, Brandon.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
So nice to have you on the program. I love your work. I love what you're doing. Let's dive right into this. So how do you define alchemy, and what exactly is modern alchemy?
Great question. So alchemy is essentially the ancient practice of, transmuting lesser metals into gold. And so I chose to use, the subtitle of The Golden Key is Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. And, whether or not someone can transmute, base metal into gold, to be determined. What I know we can do in today's day, what people are able to do, and I'm seeing more and more people successfully doing this, is alchemizing their perspectives to create more golden experiences in their life. So that's what, when I talk about modern alchemy, let's apply this idea that we're all very familiar with, of alchemizing metal into golden experiences. And I believe the path to doing that is through shifting our perspectives, so that they're in line with really, what the book does is break down 25 years of deep exploration of the ultimate nature of reality and how I have sort of trial error, applied certain perspectives to my life, which have gotten, some really incredible results that I feel the best way that I can help humanity to navigate through this very critical time that we're in is by spreading these keys. So that's alchemy to me.
Okay, so when I hear that's you said a lot of stuff there. So when I hear you say turning experiential alchemy, I guess you could call it. How do you say that to somebody who's dealing? It's one thing if you just don't have any money or you're just frustrated with your relationship. But how do you say that to somebody who's like dealing with serious life-threatening issues or cancer or their kids have just the most horrible things can happen in the world. Is there a degree? Is there a cutoff point where this stuff is not going to work, or does it work all the time? How do you explain that to somebody who's dealing with serious traumas?
Great question. And by no means do I ever want to minimize someone's traumatic experience. Obviously, most people have some level of trauma, and some people, have experienced some level of trauma in, as we know, some very severe, beyond anything you or I can probably fathom going through, right?
Right.
And so in no way do I ever want to minimize that. And I think it's as important to, when you take on the perspectives that I share, I'm not going to say it makes it okay. It makes it easier, easier to deal with something when you start to understand that it's all happening for you and not to you. So my base level perspective that I share in the book is that we're all one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. We are eternal beings that are we're spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. So once you start waking up to this idea that the narrative surrounding my experience is much grander than the time I've been incarnated in the physical. And so part of that journey, I believe, is experiencing, if we're one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things, call it God, call it the universe, call it higher self, call it source. If source is at its core, like many even, organized religions and so forth will agree, it's love at its core. Like, what is God? If we were to ask the average person, they'd say, if you could find a synonymous word, love. Okay. But if it's all one, if we're one with it, it's all an extension of the one, and it's all love, and then you have that for eternity. And no time. We can't even really fathom that, right? It becomes meaningless because there's no contrast, right? So have contrast, create really people now, there's a great paper that I talk about in the book, Simulation Argument, by Nick Bostrom from Oxford University. Basically, you have people like Elon Musk stepping forward and saying, hey, I'm 1 in a billion chance that we're not in a simulation. And so that's what I believe is happening. Source is creating a simulation to have experiences that help to give meaning to being love, right? So you can't have up without down. You can't have left without right. You've never seen a great work of art without shadow in it, have you?
It's about contrast. So it's all about contrast.
It's all about the contrast. So if someone is in a really challenging, contrasting scenario that doesn't seem aligned with love, I believe that the opportunity in that is to bring love to that space wherever you're at, right? And easier said than done. This is where the work comes in, right? But what we resist persists. What we accept, we move through. So
we don't really have a good alternative. It's not like non-alternatives.
That's exactly right. And when you start to trust, one of the keys in the book is trust the mystery. When you start shifting your perspective, alchemizing your perspective to say, life is happening for me, not to me, and at the core of that narrative is love. Now, it doesn't mean I'm always going to be happy with what is happening and transpiring, but I can find peace with it. And when you find peace with it, now you're really tapping into the way I believe your higher self views and navigates reality. You're merging with it, and as a result of merging with this non-physical part of yourself, it now the gifts come along with that. So, once you start leveling up the way you navigate, it's kind of like a video game, right? You overcome the boss at the end of one level, and now you've got the new tools for the next. And that's the sort of thing that I've seen. And look, results speak the loudest, right? So what I've seen is when people apply these perspectives, they just serve them great. Yep.
Hang on to that thought, because have you ever heard of Roy 2.0?
No.
Why don't you Google Roy 2? We got to take a break. Google Roy 2.0. Okay? And I want to talk about that. Roy 2.0. And I also want to talk about the simulation theory, which I absolutely love. We got Brandon Beacham with us. His book is on the bright side. We're talking to Brandon Beacham. His book is The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. His podcast, The Positive Head Podcast. Did you get a chance to look at that, Brandon? Roy 2.0?
I did. What a fun concept.
Isn't that good? So what do you think? Is it relevant?
I think there's reflections of that. Certainly, the idea that we are fractals of source. And, as Rumi said, 1,000+ years ago, we're not the ocean, the drop separate from the ocean. The ocean is in the drop. So
I love that.
We are. We're both. It's relative truths, right? You and I are separate. That is true. We can make an argument for that. Most people would agree. Yeah, right. You and I are one. From another perspective, that is true. And I believe in, and actually more of the base level truth of what's actually going on here. And go ahead.
I was going to say, we can only see and feel things that are in us. So while it looks like the world is outside of us, it's really inside of us. Like, I'm listening to you in my brain, right? And everything I'm saying, it's all happening in me. And this idea of unity is not airy-fairy. It's literal. It's all happening in us, right? There's no outside there.
There is no out there.
There is no out there, which gets to my next question. You mentioned the ultimate nature of reality. What exactly, how do you find an ultimate nature of reality? And as far as simulation goes, I'm on board with simulation, no problem. And I read about it almost 30 years ago. I first read Nick Bostrom's paper almost when it came out, and I bought into it right away. And I don't see how it's falsifiable. I don't see how you can deny it, really. But the question then becomes, where is base reality? And what is base reality? At the base, at some level, there has to be a base, right? So how do we jibe that with simulation theory, and how does that relate to the ultimate nature of reality?
Yeah. So ultimate nature of reality, I believe, is as we've just been kind of dancing around. Like the consciousness that animates my form is the consciousness that animates your form. The separation between us is an elaborate illusion. It's a hologram. If you look at the particles that make me up, they're not solid at all. They're 99.999% space. What we call solid is vibrations of energy popping in and out of existence. We don't know where they come from or where they go to, but they're intelligent and organized when they show up here. It's a light show. It's all, geometry is frozen sound. Matter is frozen light. And so that's what I believe the ultimate nature of reality. We're in the Earth video game in a sense. And, as far as the simulation argument, like you talked about, Nick Bostrom's paper, it's really interesting because he hypothesizes the possibilities for any civilization to become advanced. And he says, look, there's three possible scenarios. Right. The species becomes extinct before becoming post-human, which essentially means a species that has solved all the major problems that threaten their ultimate survival. 2, a species becomes post-human but opts only to utilize low technology. And 3, a species becomes post-human and continues to develop higher technology. Now, with what was interesting with that, he also used some algorithms to try and determine which one was the most likely, and 3 is what he was the conclusion of that. And so, well, what's interesting for these, our ancestor simulations is essentially what we would be, right? Is it only takes one of them to create a whole boatload of us. Right? One little kid with a Xbox 111 on his desktop And
to create a universe.
To create 7 billion of us in this particular, planet. So it's really interesting when you start playing with that. Now, what's the point? Well, if you consider a jet pilot in training, the point of using a simulator is for the trainee to master the flying skills in a safe environment so that they can use it in a future environment where the stakes are much higher, right? So I believe that's to some degree what's going on here.
That's the purpose. Do you know Tom Campbell?
Training wheels.
Have you heard of Tom Campbell? Do you know Tom? Yeah. So he talks about this whole the simulation being practice for love, to learn how to love. That's his whole point, and that makes perfect sense to me. But here's the real question here, Brandon: how do you pay the rent with this stuff? I love the philosophy. I absolutely do, and I study it every day, and I've studied it for years. But how do you pay the rent? How do you make it practical? And that's really what your book is about, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you understand that everything is energy and everything is vibration, so, who was it? It was Gandhi that said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. Why do I believe that holds true? Because there are no others. You're always doing it to self. So how you pay the rent is, first off, knowing that you can never not be held. You are an eternal being that's always been and always will be. Change is guaranteed. So if you don't like something, good news. Change is guaranteed. So a trillion Earth years from now, your consciousness will be experiencing, probably in some form we can't really fathom, but you will exist and experience. And so you are literally one with the abundance that everywhere you look, everything you see, you built this place. You actually we have amnesia to the fact that we architected all of it. So when you start thinking, how do I pay the rent? You are fishing for a minnow sitting on the back of a whale. It's all yours. It's all an extension of you. So what you need to do is, when you come holding your bag of sugar to be filled, it'll be examined to see how large it is. What story are you telling, little creator, about your worth? And are you weaving a narrative about it's really hard to make it these days? It's really, abracadabra translates to I create as I speak. You are literally spelling with your words. Your words are your wands. You are the creator and created rolled into one. So how you pay the rent is you be it to see it. Most people are doing something like work in order to have something like money, in order to be something like happy and fulfilled and feel secure. What if you felt secure and happy and fulfilled first? Guess what? Since there is no out there, you'll find yourself doing and having things that are a reflection of that vibration. So your only job, the final piece to this, your job to pay the rent, do your job well. What is your job? The same job as my job and everyone else's job, to manage your vibration. Everything comes from that.
That's awesome. And everything follows that. Everything follows your vibration. So you can manage your vibration as separate from circumstances internally.
That's the only thing you can do.
Independent of circumstances. Yeah. Most people let circumstances manage their vibration rather than the other way around.
Yep. Puppet on a string. You choose how you're going to show up prior to any extra. Now, easier said than done. This is where the work lies.
Right.
And so I'm not saying no problem, I'll just switch, 35 years of programming. No, this is where your work lies. But
it's like
you start to do it, you see the results.
It's like we're athletes, like vibrational athletes in a way, and that's right. It's like we're the greatest athletes ever in terms of vibration, and our job is to exercise our vibrational skills, like an athlete exercises his physical skills. I think that's what it sounds like to me. And we're running out of time, but I wanted to talk about COVID with you. Where does that fit into all of this?
The COVID chrysalis.
Yes.
As I like to call it. Well, I use the metaphor in the Golden Key of how we're transitioning from the caterpillar stage to the butterfly. Have you heard the sort of the breakdown of how?
Yeah, imaginal cells.
The imaginal cells. Yeah, exactly. The caterpillar destroys everything in its path, but that's the key. Ultimately, a butterfly.
What you just said is the key. He turns to puddle. He turns to mush. The caterpillar gets completely destroyed, pulverized. And you think that's what's happening now?
All the destruction it precipitated as a caterpillar, eating my mother's geraniums when I was telling her about this and her complaining about it, all that destruction turns into a puddle, a goo, that the imaginal cells feed off of in order to transmute and turn into the butterfly. And that's what we're doing as a society.
I love that. What a caterpillar calls the end of the world, the butterfly calls eternity.
You got it.
Yeah, it's like that.
So,
And that it's these are all great philosophies, but the real trick, as you say, is to do the work when it's actually happening, as it's happening, in real time. Not when you're separated from it, but while the crap is hitting the fan, so to speak. All right, so you got some wonderful stuff to say. Your book is awesome, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. Tell us real quick how people can get a hold of you and listen to your words of wisdom.
Yeah. So you can get the book at goldenkey.gift. I decided to practice what I preach by sharing the abundance because I'm selfish. I want it to just come back to me. And so I call it the good kind of selfish. So go to goldenkey.gift. You can use the code BRIGHTSIDE and all one word, and you'll be able to download or get access to the audio or ebook. And then, of course, the Positive Head podcast I do 5 days a week. You can find that anywhere you get podcasts. Let's see, Optimistic is my new late-night style talk show as well. Optimistic.
Oh, yeah, we didn't get to talk about that. You have a website, real quick? Do you have a website? Is it Golden Key?
Yep. goldenkey.gift, positivehead.com, optimistic.tv. Those are the three.
Hey, Brandon, thanks so much for being on the bright side, buddy. Appreciate it very much.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Brandon Beecham, the book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. That's all the time we have for today. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to you later, folks. Bye for now.